Hi everyone. Today we are going to discuss about freedom of the press in India. See, the legal framework of the freedom of the press in a democracy like India has been inspired by international bodies such as United Nations, US Constitution and British Constitution. So the basic documents of the United Nations and reputed international bodies recognized the predominant position of freedom of speech and expression as a basic democratic right. So, today we are going to discuss about the freedom of press in India. So, I already told you, okay, it's the freedom of press in India. So freedom of press is the freedom of expression through various media and published material. It was one of the constitutional guarantees persistently demanded by India's freedom fighters during British colonial rule. So it has a long history, okay. And after independence and during the framing of India's constitution, in the Constituent Assembly, founding fathers attached great importance to freedom of press. And they believe that the main concept of the freedom of press is the freedom of political opinion, and the core of the freedom of press or the freedom lies the right to criticize and censure the government. So, our former leaders knew the importance of the freedom of press. Okay. And surprisingly, the freedom of press is not specifically mentioned in the chapter on fundamental rights in the Indian Constitution. So that is very interesting. Okay, so if you ask me, what is the freedom of where it is mentioned? No, it is not mentioned anywhere. So freedom of the press as that particular term is not mentioned anywhere. But there was a lengthy discussion in the Constituent Assembly about the inclusion of a provision of press freedom in the Indian Constitution. However, the Assembly felt that the freedom of the press meant freedom of expression, and therefore nothing specific about it should be mentioned. And K.M. Munshi prescribed in his draft that the freedom of press, along with other freedoms, should be guaranteed and subject only to such restriction imposed by law of the Union as might be necessary in the interest of the public order and morality. So, but opposing Munshi's argument, B.R. Ambedkar observed the press is merely another way of sharing individual or a citizen. So in that case, you don't require, a separate mentioning of press there. So the freedom of expression of the citizen, yeah, obviously the press, it comes under that. Okay, and the press has no special right which are not to be given or which are not to be exercised by the citizen in individual capacity in its individual capacity. So the editor of a press or the manager are all citizens. Therefore, when they choose to write in newspapers, they are merely exercising their right. Okay, that's all. See, not everyone writes for, especially in that that age and all. Like only those who are interested in journalism, they just join in a newspaper and they write. So what they said is the editor of a newspaper, the manager of a newspaper, they are also citizens. And therefore, when they choose to write in newspapers, they are just merely exercising their right of expression. And in my judgment, therefore, no special mention is necessary for this freedom of press at all. Okay, so it's like now everybody writes, right? Yeah, even we have we have something called citizen journalism, and also we can actually write about the government. We can express our view. Okay, but that time it was not there. So those who write they are obviously the journalist or the writers. Okay. So, discussing freedom of the press in his draft, Ambedkar further remarked, no law shall be made abridging the freedom of speech, of the press, of association, and of assembly, except for consideration of public order and morality. So, he has he mentioned this thing, while drafting, our constitution. Okay. And Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the principal architect of the Constitution, assured the members that freedom of press, uh, freedom of freedom of the press was included in the guarantee of freedom of speech and expression. That is Article 19(1)(a). Okay, and India's Supreme Court has held that there was no need to mention freedom of the press separately because it's already included in the guarantee of freedom of speech and expression. So, which comprehends not only the liberty to propagate one's own views, but also the right to print matters which have either been borrowed from someone else or are printed under the direction of that person. So, it also includes the liberty of publication and circulation through any medium of expression, including printing. And so don't worry about all those things. Okay, that was a little bit history, how these things actually, came in or, appeared in the constitution. Okay, you don't have to worry about that. All those things. So these are like more important. Okay, and what is this freedom of speech and expression? Okay, so freedom of speech and expression is one of the highest democratic values assured by democratic countries all over the world. So if you see, if you take the constitution of any country, you can see that this particular, um, freedom is given to the citizens all there. Okay, and India also follow the international standards of democracy by assuring the freedom. In India Constitution, Article 91 declares this freedom. So the article assures the right to freedom of speech and expression, to assemble peacefully and without arms, to form associations or unions, to move freely throughout the territory of India, to practice any profession or to carry on any occupation, trade or business. See, these are known as the fundamental rights assured by the Indian Constitution of India. So there the first one is freedom of speech and expression. Okay. So Indian media also take privilege of the same fundamental right, that is the freedom of speech and expression, to run a media organization. So some nations provide special value to media freedom, okay? But India did not mention it specifically. So media persons in India don't enjoy any special freedom in gathering information or, expressing their views and feelings. The right to freedom of speech and expression does not mean that no restriction is possible in defending the freedom. So the fundamental right does not allow the citizens to speak or disseminate information responsibly. See, there are restrictions also when you have a law. There are reasonable restrictions also. So Indian Constitution itself imposed reasonable restriction to the freedom of speech and expression. So Article 92, 19(1) talks about the fundamental rights and 19(2) explains law imposed restriction on the exercise of the right conferred by the said subclause in the interest of the sovereignty and integrity of India. So that is like interest of the sovereignty and integrity of India, the security of the state, friendly relationship with foreign countries, public order, decency or morality, or in relation to contempt of court, defamation, or incitement to an offense. Okay, so they are not like so you can use this freedom, but do not tamper all these things, especially the sovereignty and integrity of India and the security of the state, and do not defame any people, do not do contempt of court, so all those things. Okay, and this article of Indian Constitution clearly underlines the citizens' right to protect their privacy and decency. So anybody, including media, has no power to violate the provision or publish news which harms a person's privacy and decent life. So these are the restrictions, okay? And The first one we have mentioned about defamation. We have mentioned about defamation and the contempt of court. So first we will talk about defamation. It's very important. You are all going to become journalists and you are all planning to work in media. So you should know what is defamation. So what is defamation? So defamation is any matter which exposes a person about whom it is published to hatred, to ridicule or contempt is said to be defamatory. Defamation law protects an individual's reputation or feelings from unwarranted attacks. It is an offense with both civil and criminal aspects. Okay. So if I tell you see, this is don't get confused with this, this legal terminology and all. This is just you are not supposed to defame anybody. So what is fame, and how are you defaming it? So so that is the difference. Yeah. So you know what is fame? Yeah, of course. Yeah. So how are you? You can tamper that fame, right? Yes. So that is basically defaming. Okay. So yeah, so that is basically defame. So you in especially you do not tamper individuals' reputation. So that happens these days. Okay, the oral defamation is called as slander. So there are two types of defamation. One is oral and another one is written. Okay, so oral defamation is called slander, a radio or television broadcast which tarnishes the reputation of a person is considered as slander case, a case, slander case in a court of law. Like, so oral is like, if you are like your spoken word or gestures come under this thing. Example like, the speech or, news broadcast. If you are defaming somebody, using your words or, your gestures, they can actually sue you. They can file a case against you. Next is now, like, we have all this media and it is you are being recorded these days. So you have to be very careful, when you use such things. So see, this class is it's being recorded, right? So if I say something, I can probably, defame somebody if I use that thing. And this record will be evidence. So I should be very careful, while talking. Okay. And next is libel. Libel is defined as a defamation by written or printed words. Example, like, cartoons and all, like, cartoons, come under this thing. And also, I told you, like, written and, written thing, mainly writing comes under this. Okay. For example, magazine, internet, blog, article, etc. Okay. So that is the difference between libel and slander. And there is another thing also that is called sedition. That is not very common these days. I mean, yeah, that is not very common, but we always use libel and slander. So it is, again, sedition is a kind of defamation against the state. So you are not supposed to defame your state. State in the sense your ruling, your government. Okay. So truthful criticism of the official would be accepted by the public. Okay, so that is fine. Okay, if you are giving a truthful this thing, then that is fine. So if it is defamatory just to attack the government, then that is not entertained. Okay, so those media that do such criticism may get noticed by the public, but the impact will be the trial for sedition. Okay, see, just imagine. Yeah. So whatever you are talking about the state actually can, yeah, so truthful, yeah, people will believe it, right? So people will believe it and people will you may get more TRP and readership and all that stuff, but still it's an offense. Okay, under this defamation. Okay, so sedition is an offense under section 124A of the Indian Penal Code 1860. The conviction can lead to life imprisonment. The offense is specified in the following terms. Okay, so it's like the legal thing. Okay, whoever by words, either spoken or written, or by signs, or by visible representation, or otherwise brings or attempts to bring into hatred or contempt, or excites or attempts to excite class disaffection towards the government established by law in India shall be punished with imprisonment for life, to which fine may be added, or with imprisonment which may extend to 3 years, to which fine may be added, or with fine. You just imagine. So when you talk against your government, you have to be careful. Okay, so don't raise this unnecessary, untruthful, things about the government. If you have evidence, obviously you can say, but still they can sue you, because see, the government is formed under law, right? It's established by law. The government is established by law, actually. So you have to be careful. Okay. So next is contempt of court. That is again very common. You would have heard about, you know people hard to face, the court, um, you know what you say, like, especially related to this contempt to court and all, like, so usually when you talk about a court's proceeding, or a verdict of a judge, so that all come actually under this contempt of court. Okay, so according to the contempt of courts law 1975, civil contempt means willful disobedience to any judge, decree, direction, order, writ, or other process of a court, or willful breach of an undertaking given to a court. Breach it, that is also a contempt of court. So the criminal contempt means the publication of any matter or doing of any other act whatsoever which scandalizes or tend to scandalize or lowers or tends to lower the authority of any court, prejudices or interferes or tends to interfere with the due course of any judicial proceedings, interferes or tends to interfere with, or obstructs or tend to obstruct the administration of justice, in other words, in any other manner provided in this act or in any other law. So very important. Can I put it in simple words? Okay. So yes, so this is basically, you usually during court proceedings and all, this even though we have um, opposite, or we have points against the verdict and all, we don't usually say it out. We don't usually speak it out. Why? Because uh, you know, we respect our, court. We respect the Supreme Court. That is the extreme power, right? So we respect that. We respect the court. We respect the, judges. We respect their verdicts and all. So even if you take any verdict for that matter, you can see Sabrimala issue happened recently. This Padmanabha temple issue happened. I mean, the verdict came. Nobody made any. I don't think anybody made a statement which is against the court of law. I don't think so, because we respect the judiciary in our country. That's why. Okay, so we do respect them. So that's why. Yes, one of the pillars. Okay. So that is like, usually when you disturb the proceedings of a court, or if you talk against the wording of a judge, or if you do anything against the judge or the court or the verdict, or any case, that is basically considered as contempt of court. And there are two types of contempt of court. One is civil and another one is criminal. Okay, and press and parliament. Okay, so press. Do you think they have some role to play in the parliament? See that, okay? So parliament, the government and the people communicate with each other through press and other mass media. Media plays an important role in the parliamentary life. It helps in exposing the weaknesses of the democratic system and point out how these can be rectified. Press gives expression to public grievances and difficulties and reports on how policies are being carried out. Most of the parliamentary questions, debates come from the daily press, and this is an important instrument, right? And the parliaments also relies on press. Simultaneously, the press keeps the people informed of what is happening in the parliament. Yes, so they have a special space there. They can report. Okay, so there is a genre of reporting, parliament reporting. Yeah, that you learn in the next semester. So the press can discharge this function effectively only if it enjoys the freedom of press. Yes. So the press is often called the extension of parliament because we will come to know about the parliamentary proceedings and the other things related, what is actually happening inside the parliament via the media. So that's why. And it is a privilege of the media, they can go inside the parliament and the legislative assembly and they can cover the events. Okay, that is actually a privilege of no common man can just go inside, while this parliamentary proceedings are taking place. You have to get prior permission for that. So but journalists, again, it's their privilege. They can go inside if you are a registered, if you are working with a registered newspaper, magazine, or online media or broadcast media. Then you have you have the right to go inside and you can collect information from the parliament. And there is a channel. Hope you know that Rajya Sabha TV is there. That is RSTV and Lok Sabha TV. That is LSTV. So two channels are there. Actually, they are actually telecasting the parliamentary procedures. We also get to see what is happening inside the parliament. Okay. So that is all for today. Hope you have enjoyed this session. So uh, yeah, do remember these things: freedom of speech and expression, and the restrictions, then defamation, contempt of court, and finally parliament and the press. So thank you so much.
American phone.